and I would like to share with you our experience of God's faithfulness in our lives. 2 years ago, I returned to the US but had to leave my family back in Manila to set things up here before they would join me. For 7 months, I went through a downward spiral of frustration, depression, loneliness, and anxiety. I wrestled with God and myself. When I finally surrendered my situation to God, God answered my prayers. My family and I were reunited. God provided a job, and He set up a place for us to call home. The only drawback, it was in Palm Desert, 2 hours away. We pressed on as a godly family, striving hard to follow God's will. Although we traveled to Long Beach every other week to attend CCFLA services and did our ministries in between, my wife and I felt that there was an unsatisfied hunger for God. Much like what Pastor Donnie said in one of his messages, we wanted more. We were alone in the desert, and even if we attended church services in LA and our local church, we didn't have accountability. We didn't have anybody to encourage us but ourselves. We were literally, spiritually alone. 4 months, we kept praying to God what it is that He wants us to do here in Palm Desert. We kept asking Him, what is His will for us? As months flew by, it became obvious that the job was a lot more stressful than advertised. As a manager, I was getting blamed for everything that was being missed during my shift. I supervised 53 employees, cleaning 33 buildings, with some very specific requests and needs. In other words, I get yelled at if one light in one room is left on in one suite. If you might recall, I almost got fired because of the damage to the MRI machine caused by one of my people under me. I really appreciated Jesus more than ever because I was getting crucified for the sins of everyone. Despite the stress of this job, I kept giving my 100% to God. I would always talk to my wife about how hard my day was and how much I wanted out of this job. She would tell me, put yourself out in the market and see if God has better something for you. He will close the door and open a window. So I did. I would tell my boss about my frustrations, and every time he would promise me a promotion. So what I did, I delayed looking for another job. This cycle would go on for a few months. I get frustrated, I talk to my wife, she tells me the same thing, I talk to my boss, and I get promised a promotion. Over and over. All this time, God was giving me hints which I was ignoring. He was talking to me through other godly people, through my quiet time, and through circumstances. To name a few, Sister Lynette, out of the blue, almost every other week, she would mention that she was praying for our schedule so that we could be here in CCFLA every week. My mother-in-law, in her brief visit with us, kept saying that my job is not good for the kids because they stay up late waiting for me. I also received phone calls from companies that applied for last year asking for my services. And lastly, the constant reminder from my wife to put myself out in the job market again. On October 2012, I finally got down on my knees, prayed and challenged God. I said, Lord, can you give me an answer in 6 months? If I don't get promoted, I will resign in 6 months. And I didn't stop there. I continued praying and asking every day. True enough, the Lord made His move. Just last month, several cases of juice ended up missing in one of the buildings we were cleaning. Investigation showed that 2 of my housekeepers were taking juice out of the fridge. Unfortunately, because of my command responsibility and the past incident of the MRI machine, they decided to let me go. They told me that the account was their priority, and if the hospital deemed I was not doing my job, it was best the company part ways with me as well. This was truly heartbreaking, but in the middle of it all, I found peace. We took refuge in God's promise in Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord will be with you wherever you go. Immediately after I was informed about my termination, I emailed the company I used to work for. I was hesitant to send the email because it was I who turned them down last year. It also was during the Christmas break, so I didn't expect any answer until after the holidays. But God was one step ahead of me. While I was worrying about my today, He was already there in our tomorrow preparing the way. And I unexpectedly received an email from the hiring manager, and an appointment was set up only 2 days after I sent my email. He said my timing could be more perfect because they needed people badly. Surprisingly, in all this chaos of the termination, having to relocate back in Long Beach, trying to settle back in the new and better job, my family and I only had gratitude in our hearts. We are confident that God will continue to provide for us. His faithfulness has been constant in our life in the past year, and we knew God would never change. We continue to pray direction and discernment, but we're excited about the move back because this means that we can now attend Sunday service every week. Yay. And return to accountability in a D group. Yay! In everything that has happened to us in 2012, we can confidently say that we're learning to seek to remain in His presence, to seek His will in everything that is happening in our lives, but more importantly, to give thanks to Him in everything that has happened, both good and bad. Because now I know that He truly speaks to us. We have only to learn how to listen. Our greatest testimony to the company that I have just left and to our family and friends who have been witnesses to our journey is that through everything we remain gentle, in our words and in our attitude. There were anxious even times that we were sorely tempted to be, and in everything we only uttered thanks to the great Father who's been so gracious to us. To God be the glory. Woo!